evening and welcome to the very first installment of the MBTV Debates Rui Cunha Foundation series. And what a special one we have for this maiden edition of 2024. We're going to talk about something that is basically the core industry of our city of Macau, the gaming industry. 1 year on, the new gaming concessions. I would like to welcome you all here, joining us at Rui Cunha Foundation. And those of you who are following us via Facebook Live, it's always especially meaningful for us to hold these round tables, promoting a public discussion, the public sphere on our city's affairs. And I'd like to thank again, as always, the team from Rui Cunha Foundation who have been continuously supporting us over these 4 years of series that we've been holding, the MBTV Debates series. So today we will be talking, as I was saying, about the city's core industry, but we'll talk also about non-gaming, because non-gaming is also the name of the game, or of the gaming, I shall say. 1 year into the new gaming concessions, the city's core industry has undergone a robust post-pandemic recovery. The Macau gaming industry has entered a new era marked by heightened supervision and a stronger emphasis on mass market, non-gaming, and diversification. What are the main takeaways from this first year, and what comes next? To shed light onto this, we are joined by a distinguished panel of guest speakers that I would like to welcome and to thank, of course, for kindly accepting our invitation. Let me introduce you to this panel. We have with us Professor Davis Fong, is the director of the Institute for the Study of Commercial Gaming at the University of Macau. Well-seasoned expert on gaming, non-gaming, and the city's economy. Thank you very much, Davis, for joining us. On my left, I have Rui Pinto Proença, managing partner at MDME with extensive legal expertise on gaming and also, of course, non-gaming matters. Thank you very much for joining us, Rui. Niall Murray, he's the chairman of Murray International Macau Limited, specialist in integrated resorts who served in the past in Macau and Las Vegas gaming and integrated resorts operators. And I'd like to welcome José Duarte, well-seasoned senior economist and Macau Business's senior analyst, who's been with us basically since the very beginning of our group, which, by the way, celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. That will be certainly also a matter for more roundtables and discussions. Okay, let's move forward. And what a coincidence. This very day that we are holding this talk, well, I think most of us, we were waken up by big news, a bombshell, I shall say. The announcement of the termination of the concession contract of the Macau Jockey Club. Though it was not supposed to be an issue on our agenda, but we've all agreed, well, there's no way to escape the elephant in the room. Let's go for it. Let's talk about it first, and then we'll move on to the analysis on the gaming concessions. Davis, were you caught by surprise? What's your comment on this development of the Macau Jockey Club?
Frankly speaking, as a scholar, it is not so surprised. The so-called Jockey Club actually losing his market gradually. Because based on my understanding, gaming product actually competing with each other. And if you're looking back a little bit, 20 years ago, comparing the number of tourists 20 years later, more and more tourists come to Macau. But the tourist, or put it more general, the gambler, may choose what type of gaming product they would like to choose. And among Macau, probably you know it, many years ago we had horse racing, greyhound racing, lotteries, a casino. But at the end, casino actually outperformed the other form of legalized product. And this is very common, number one. Number two, we learned this experience from US as well. Because whenever there's a booming of the casino, there will be a high pressure of competition to other gaming product like horse racing. So that means this is a natural of competition. Third thing is we had a very strong jockey club player in the next city, they mean Hong Kong Jockey Club. So that's why they are competing with each other, not just within our territory, but also among some other cities around. And so that's why the company losing market shares, losing markets gradually. And frankly speaking, it's not so surprised because Jockey Club lose money many years. And then I respect the decision, okay, made by the government as well as the Jockey Club. And maybe it's a good time to think about what type of product, what type of gaming product more suitable to Macau for sustainable development.
Thank you very much, Professor Davis Fong. Rui, your 2 cents on this big issue.
I think from a different perspective of someone that resides in the city for a long time, it's sad to see it's a part of the city's history. It's certainly part of Dr. Ho's vision and legacy. And obviously seeing that gone is sad, but such is life. I think some businesses succeed, others fail. I think as Dr. Fong was saying, the financial situation of the Jockey Club was known, was less than ideal, was unsustainable. And I think what's important to draw now is the conclusions on whether this was something that was a problem of the existing operator or of the market and of the product that's no longer a product that's appealing. And I think we saw a similar decision, I think, for other reasons being made in Singapore. So perhaps this is something wider that's difficult to compete in this market. And I think the question that everybody's asking now is what's going to happen to the land? It's a very, very big plot of land that could potentially change that area of the city. But I think those are the scenes for the next chapters.
Certainly, this is a big story which certainly is being followed up by our colleagues, by our newsroom. We'll have more on this. Niall, your comment on the big announcement?
I don't think it was to me, it wasn't a big surprise. I was had the pleasure of working with SCM for a number of years, and we were doing some of the renovation projects and efforts to bring it up to date and make it something special and competitive. But when we compared it to the Hong Kong Jockey Club and the investment that was there was just a huge difference. And we went in and we redid the slot rooms, we did a few different renovations. But the passion and the will to keep it going was lost when Stanley Ho stepped back from the operation. And so the company, you could see, was not putting all the effort that they would need to keep it really vibrant. What I thought was a very important statement from the government was very simply, you have commitments in these concessions. If you don't follow and do what you're asked to do in these concessions, they will be pulled. We're not playing around anymore. And that was a very strong lesson to pull them from, they're supposed to be there till 2042. And they just said, that's that. And I think this is another lesson, like we learned with the junket operations. There's a new team in town. They're taking things seriously. We're moving forward, whether you like it or not. And I think it was really important and a strong message again.
Thank you, Niall. José.
Not much that I can add to what my friends already said. Maybe only quote Garcia Marquez saying this was a chronicle of a death foretold in a way. And of course, the main things that it leaves behind is first what to do with the animals. Let's not forget about them. And second, what to do with not only with the land, but all with the built premises. Built structures. There are a number of them. So that's the thing that keeps open now. The end of the Jockey Club in itself, I don't think it was too surprising. Surprising was the extension of the
24-year
that was the
extension in 2018. So in this case, well, we can have Garcia Marquez, but Mark Twain's famous quote of the death of the Jockey Club was greatly, or the news of the death of the Jockey Club was greatly exaggerated. It doesn't hold water in this case.
No, this was the life was greatly exaggerated.
Yes. Thank you very much. So certainly we will have opportunities to delve into this, to further discuss the issue of the, of course, digesting and analyzing the termination of the concession contract of the Macau Jockey Club, and of course, what lies ahead, what comes next in terms of urban development and all those questions. But what brings us here is the first year of the new gaming concessions, 10-year gaming concessions that came into effect on the 1st of January 2023. And let's start by Davis. Main takeaways, if you have to single out a couple of main features of these first year, of course, we have gaming revenue, but there's more to it, right?
I think the first is very important learning experience. It's because if you look back a little bit, 20 years ago versus 20 years later, no matter the business model or the structure, completely different. And if I would like to say the so-called the old business model is not that sustainable, especially during the COVID, 3 years over, and then we're suffering the most. If you're looking at all the gaming jurisdictions around the world, we're suffering the most. So that means the business model itself had a very important weakness. So that's 2022, the government would like to revise the gaming law and finally transform the old business model to a new business model. So, however, because this is a new business model, especially the so-called non-gaming elements increased significantly. So that's why the first year implementation is very important for both parties, concessionaries as well as the government. And if I would like to say the first is important for what? For the foundation. Because for a long, long time, we had a very big argument. Non-gaming elements, no use at all, okay? Before the COVID, okay? Because only less than 10% or even some operator less than 5% of the revenue coming from non-gaming. However, chicken and egg, I would say, as time goes by, more and more so-called countries would like to legalize casino. And at the end of the day, Macau is not the one and only one places to have casino or IR. And later on, because of the Me Too product effects, casino is same, table game is same, rules of game is same. So what makes Macau different and then competing in a more sustainable way? Non-gaming. So that's why I totally agree, non-gaming is the future. It's not just the future of Macau, but also future of the whole IR industry. And Macau do it in advance. And how to develop the so-called synergy between the gaming and non-gaming, 2023 is the most important year to learn the experience. And probably everybody knows it. Concert is one of the very big name card, already say,
Yes, of course.
2023.
All these shows.
A lot of shows,
Yes.
a lot of singers, not just Hong Kong, but also international famous singers, celebrities, playing the concert in Macau. However, not every concert actually creating the same so-called P&L account to the casino. Some singer or some performers actually can not just increase the revenue of the non-gaming, but at the same time, in the same night, they actually push up the GGR of the mass market significantly. Some of them 30 to 40% increase compared to the normal day. So that means we are learning. The first year, very important. I just would like to use a concept as one of the example, but also many other things, such as the sports plus tourism, such as other entertainment plus tourism. And then we need to learn what will be the most effective synergies between the gaming and non-gaming, and finally benefit the whole industry.
Thank you, Davis. Rui Plus, Tourism Plus is kind of a buzzword, but it's taking center stage. And Davis was singling out the case of the shows and also the learning curve of the operators in this first year. What's your first take on this matter? This first year of the gaming concessions, we've witnessed a rebound of the tourism industry and, of course, a recovery to 62% of gross gaming revenue compared to pre-COVID.
Yeah. No, I think, as you mentioned, it was robust. I think it surpassed even the most optimistic expectations. and so obviously that's a very positive sign for Macau, for its economy and for its people. But I believe, you know, the numbers, you know, if you look past the numbers, I think they validate, they vindicate, I think, some of the policy directions that were taken. And as Davis was saying, this was a big transformation. It was the departure from an old way of doing business into a new way. You know, it could be tourism plus or +1 or +4. I don't know.
Yes.
I think
we have the 1+4, right?
yeah, I've a bit lost on that
Yes.
myself.
We stay in tourism plus for now.
Tourism
yes.
plus. But I think obviously it's too early to say if some of these measures and directions will work or will not work. I think we need to learn as we go. But definitely, I think the first year is very positive, and to the extent that you know, this policy direction that was taken also serves to align what are the expectations of Macau as a region with the expectations of the mainland towards the gaming industry. I think it quite validates the direction that's been taken, because the numbers are there, visitation is back, revenue is back, and I think there's a, you know, a visible effort from all stakeholders to make this work. And I think in the beginning, obviously, this shift was, I think, painful, and there was a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. If is this going to work? Is this not? You know, how can it work without junkets? Is that ever going to be possible? And I think the first year indicates that is possible. And so it's a matter of learning from here, see what works best for Macau and for the markets that it's trying to cater, and learn from the experience. So I think it's a very positive first year.
So going back to Mark Twain, then we can say that the news of the death of Macau as the top gaming jurisdictions were clearly exaggerated. Though, Niall, of course, back then we were in the midst of zero COVID, and the outlook was grim. And then we had 2023. What's your comment on the past 12 months?
I think what happened with the concession renewal was a reboot. And the reboot was back to what the original promise was. We remember back in Vegas when we were talking about coming to Macau, we were told clearly they want to replicate that model. That model was 65% non-gaming, you know, and that's what we promised and said we would deliver. When we arrived here on the ground, we just couldn't imagine the numbers and the volumes that were coming through the gaming side, and what the junket brought to play. So I believe when the laws were issued and we ran, I don't believe that the government realized that we were going to have sub-concessions. They thought there was going to be 3 competitors coming in, open up a casino each, and compete with Dr. Stanley.
Now we have 1+4, but back then we had 3+3, right?
Yeah, and it kept growing.
I mean, we have
right?
6, of course.
And we went up to 42 casinos, now we're back to 30, right? But this readjustment is to reel in the things that just got out of control, and to get back to what we were meant to do in the first place, was to rejig this whole opportunity to be a lot more non-gaming than gaming. It's starting to work, and with the elimination of the junkets, which was another one of these massive hits, you've got mass growing to the percentages that they want. You want players coming in, spending smaller amounts of money in more volume, and eliminating that illegal element. It's been really powerful. It's worked. So the numbers now, when you see at the end of the year, you're talking 80-20, which is really significant.
80-20 gaming mass versus VIP, yes.
Which is a huge shift, and which means what we used to call in Vegas was the type of customers who weren't worth the wear on the carpet. Was the expression. There was so many people, but dropping so little. There's going to be a lot more of that in the future, where we're talking about a lot more money, spending a lot less on the gaming floor, but you're going to have to rely on volumes, and this is where it's moving. And I think that what they originally intended will be accomplished with this new initiative. Having said that, there needs to be an overall integrated, aligned strategy from the government, with solid strategies beneath that, to coordinate this in a very efficient manner. That's not there yet.
We will be talking about what some call a sort of de facto public-private partnership of this undertaking of the new, the model of the new gaming and non-gaming concessions. José, is the new model of gaming concessions the chosen one to bring balance to the force?
Well, as Neil just said, the new one is not really that new. It was just the one that was expected from the beginning. What happened is that reality went faster than the wishes or the ability to cope with that. So we ended up with a kind of system that clearly was not pleasing everyone and was creating a number of issues that were disturbing some people. Let's be clear about that. So what's point now is we are trying to rejig, that's the word you use. My question is, the reason why we didn't follow the initial plan is because suddenly the sky was the limit and we just build and they will come. That is over. So we have to deal with a situation where infrastructure was built under that assumption and now has to be operated in a different assumption. So that's the first thing. The second one is that that was a response, so to speak, from the operators to a demand that was there for what we now call the VIP sector. There was a demand there. Does that demand disappear? Is it finding different outlets? Is it moving somewhere else? Because that's important to define how the future of this industry in Macau is going to develop.
Yes, and this brings us to also to the issue of when we're talking about mass GGR vis-a-vis VIP GGR, but it's a more nuanced situation on the ground, right? We have Davies, we have premium mass, which is not categorized as such by the regulator, by the ICJ, and then other even when we look at the revenue stream, and also there's one thing which is the issue of what would be the new normal of GGR. What's your comment on the new structure of revenue streams?
And I try to so-called calculate the average, okay, in 2023 versus 2019. If you're looking at the number of visitors and number of GGR, just looking at the mass market, and basically each gambler lose 15,000 Macau dollar, one gambler, and versus almost 2,000 US dollar, okay? And then comparing the same situation in Las Vegas, only 300 US dollar per each gambler they lose. And so that means just looking at the mass market, actually our mass market has the average betting volumes are even higher than the so-called mass market in Las Vegas, okay? It depends how you define what does it mean mass, right? Because if you define mass, and then there must be another group of premium mass and VIP. But our mass, or maybe equivalent to the premium mass in Las Vegas already. So this is number one issue. Number two, if you're looking at the fourth quarter of 2023, add all the GGR together, divided by 3, and then there's around 18 billion per month. And
yes. Last quarter, yes.
Last quarter, 18 billion. And then if you take the GGR the whole year, okay, and then dividing the number of tourists, and then almost each number of tourists, not the gambler, tourists, 6,400 per each tourist. Very stable, very stable. And what does it mean? That means after 1 year operation of the new model, and then we understand as long as we keeping number of tourists moving up, and we can expect more or less the same ratio of GGR we come back. So put it very simple. 20% increase of the tourists increase 2024. There will be 20% increase of GGR 2024. That's it.
So
simple math.
And that simple math would bring us probably to the 216 billion GGR, or a bit more perhaps. We'll talk about what lies ahead, about the future, Davis. Rui, from a legal standpoint, I mean, we have the new gaming concessions in effect following the new gaming law and a set of, I mean, we can say the new gaming legal system because it's not only one law. It's a set of legislation or pieces of legislation that together, I would say, form a corpus of the new legal system or the new legal regime, I shall say, with a focus, of course, on heightened supervision, regulation, and other features. What would you single out in this respect?
Well, I think actually the biggest legal developments that shaped this year were from 2022,
Yeah,
right?
obviously, right,
This is the amendment to the gaming law, as you mentioned, the
and
framework.
actually, sorry to interrupt, and we had a talk here back then at the very beginning of the consultation on the new gaming law with José and Rui were also here, and back then there was sort of a front-loading approach by the government, but then during the consultation the outcome was less strict somehow, right?
Yeah, no, it was a process that there was dialogue, and I think things evolved throughout the process. It took place the year before, 2022, as I was mentioning. As you mentioned, it was just not the amendment to the gaming law; it was the framework. Of course, it's not a completely new framework. It evolved from what we've had before. But it was not only that; it was the tender process, which was obviously lengthy, and it was took a lot of energy from all stakeholders to put together. There was the negotiation and then the signature of the concession contract. So a lot happened in 2022 with repercussions on this first year. But I think if I was going to single out something that this first year signifies is certainty. I think it's a word that, from a legal standpoint, we appreciate as lawyers, businesses too. We went through a period of a lot of uncertainty that all these processes brought, and a lot of it was a very big transformation from the way that things used to be done to the new rules of the game, literally. And so I think we all appreciate that now. We may disagree with some of the ways that things were done, or with some of the measures taken, or approaches to legislation or the contracts. But at the end of the day, the path is clear now. Everybody knows the rules, knows the rules of the game, know what needs to be done. So the direction is quite clear, and I think that's beneficial to everyone. And I think the operators also showed a tremendous capacity to adapt to this new reality, and are starting to thrive under this new reality. So I think certainty is definitely good for business.
Certainty? Sorry, it took me perhaps half an hour to say the word diversification. Niall, I'm trying to...
I find it really incredible how the government approached the diversification of the economy. If you look at case studies in Abu Dhabi and different countries, how they went about the diversification process, they brought together experts from all over the world. They spent years planning 30-year development plans. And the apparent delegation of the diversification of the economy to the IR industry was a bit of a shock. Especially if you're talking about the +4. So, all my days working in IRs, we didn't have experts on modern finance and big health and high tech, and we do on mice and areas like that. So I think there's a lot of head scratching going on, saying, right, we're going to have to assist with this. It's been determined. However, we don't have the talent and the natural resource and the expertise in which to do that. So we should focus on the 1 and the 4, the last one, the mice and the creative, the culture and the sports. So I still think that was a bit of a shock to the operators. There's an analogy that comes to mind. 20,000 people are standing at the starting line of a marathon. The gun goes off and they run in 20,000 different directions because nobody says exactly where the finishing line is for this strategy. So I think it's getting clearer and the certainty is coming, but there was a lot of grey at the beginning. And there still needs to be an overarching strategy that links and aligns all of these efforts into one cohesive strategy that will get us to that 10-year goal. Otherwise, it's going to be everyone's trying their own thing, and basically it's like, what's your strategy? Well, you go out and make one up. Come back and meet us every quarter, and we'll tell you if you like it or not, and if we don't, change it. That to me is not a cohesive, solid strategy yet, but it's getting there, and they want some pace with this, wanted to move it forward. And I think a lot of the action groups are showing breakdowns in this strategy, especially in what I would call pacing and staging. When do you do certain things? So, for example, the CRED came out about hiring talent. And they said you can hire talent now, and we'd really particularly enjoy if you hired Nobel Prize winners and gold medal winners. Well, okay, great, come to Macau, but who are they going to work for? You've got to draw those big four industries in first, the best in the world, attract them like you did the gaming industry, put in the best incentives in Southeast Asia or the world to say, I'm going to go and do big health in Macau because of ABC. Those things have to be put in place first before you start bringing in amazing talent for those industries. They got to work somewhere. So this overall master strategy really has to be pulled together over this as soon as possible, basically, and then adjusted and adopted. Otherwise, it's going to be that 20,000 people going in 20,000 different directions.
So the key here is to make those 20,000 people to move into
we're going this way.
5 directions, the 1+5 or the tourism plus. José Eduardo, there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Oh, no, not again. It's diversification. I think that's been a buzzword for the last 40 years, changing meaning over time.
Is it old wine in new bottle? Or there's something new?
No, I'm not saying that. Actually, there is very new wine in this bottle, as Niall was pointing out, because it appears in some ways, if I without trying not to use too strong words, that the government is trying to outsource activities that usually are the domain of public policy. And that is somewhat puzzling in the sense that there is no clear direction about what are the objectives of those public policies. So we are putting the private operators whose main competence is gambling, let's not forget about it, and that's where they make their money and that's what they are committed to, in the role of defining development policies for different areas in the city, and not necessarily in a coordinated way. How are they going to deal with the matters of private property? Well, are they going to deal with matters of conflicts of interest, private, even between different departments of the public administration? I feel there is something that needs clearly to be clarified, because otherwise I think Niall is very right. We may end up with quite a mess in terms of the different interventions that the various operators will feel bound to carry about, because that's their mandate. That's a condition for maintaining their concessions, but it's not clear how that is going to operate when you start dealing with the daily issues of those things. If there are even conflicts between different departments in the public administration, different understandings, who's going to decide about them? Are they the concessionaires, the operators? Are we going to that kind of go back and forth? Okay, we correct this, then comes another problem, then we go back again. That may become a very, very messy situation. So I think that's something that the government would do well in looking carefully and trying to set more clear indications about what is expected from the operators.
So we're talking about also a learning process. And Davies, some people are wondering whether there will be kind of ticking the box process. Okay, done. But then at the end of the day, what about the consistent outcome and the direction? How do you address? I mean, certainly you've been looking into this over these past few months and taking note also of the complaints, or at least points of view that question the wisdom of this modus operandi.
Maybe I add some comments on the diversification. I think the relationship between the concessionary and the so-called economic diversification of whole Macau, and is this, I would like to put this way, the six operator actually assist the so-called the SAR to achieve the so-called economic diversification. Surely, the so-called six operator is not the main power or main source of power to diversify the economy of Macau. Okay, it's number one, very clear. Okay, number two, I think the ultimate goal. We are talking about the ultimate goal, the objectives here, and based on my understanding, just based on the so-called the plan actually released several days ago. Okay, and the ultimate goal is trying to control the so-called non-gaming industry up to around 60% of the GGR of Macau.
Yes.
Okay, I would like to explain a little bit what does mean non-gaming
Yeah.
industries.
And this is just a note on this aim of by 2028.
Yes.
Non-gaming, the aggregate value of non-gaming accounting for 60% of the gross domestic product of Macau.
Yes,
And pre-pandemic, we are it's
51%.
51%.
51% gaming industry related.
Yes.
49% non-gaming related.
The pathway to attain this ambitious goal.
I think so, because if you're looking at the 2019, the gross gaming revenue, correct me if I was wrong, 292 billion, right? And my question, I can ask you one question, can I?
Yes, of course.
What do you think? How long does it take Macau can achieve 292 billion GGR?
I should not have said yes. I mean, I said yes. Now I have to answer the question.
Is it take 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, right?
Yeah,
It may take
yes.
it may take a little bit longer time. Because we are running a so-called mass market business model, right? And then if you believe it, that means what? That means if we keep a little bit faster growth of non-gaming industry, 5 years time, and actually it's working now. And I strongly believe 5 years later, the non-gaming, the value added to the economy, maybe around 60% of the so-called the whole GDP of Macau. But the gaming, 40%. It's because we transform the whole gaming industry to another business model. Okay? This is number one issue I wanted to share with you. And yes, I totally agree with Nell that we don't have any talent, high tech, okay, big health, something like this. But I would like to ask one question. When we liberalized the gaming, 2001, 2002, nobody, no operator questioned about the talent of Macau. And we received 21 interest proposal and then 18 qualified. And then the government actually granted out 3 concessions, right? At that point in time, the bidder, they don't have any question or doubts about where the people from, okay, in order to serve the industry, right? Because businessmen looking at the industry and then, okay, there will be a very big potential of the business. I mean, IR, casino, integrated resort. So if the business there, I can help. I can recruit the people around the world, help Macau to achieve, right? The same issue here. It's not because we had a lot of talent of the big health or modern finance or even high tech, so that we develop these 3 industries. It's because we're looking at the business opportunity, and finally, maybe these 3 or 4 new industry will be workable for the years to come, so that let's work together. If you can introduce some good idea, and the government or even the businessman can help to introduce, to attract the people, the talent to come here to develop the business.
Let me ask José, thank you, Davis, for comment on this goal about regarding increasing non-gaming from 51% to 60% of the GDP. That as a goal and how to get there by 2028.
Well, we can formulate it in a very simple. It's very good that Davis clarified that issue, and that when we are talking about diversification, what we are actually talking about is reducing the share of gambling from 51 to 40%. So this is what is understood by diversification, because diversification may have other understandings, especially in light of the plans and the priorities of the areas for development. So that is not a very ambitious target. I think it is clearly achievable. And not to mention, and now allow me to put a naughty comment that Davis will forgive me, is that like all ratios, the way it evolves depends on both the numerator and the denominator. And it's not that difficult to juggle a little bit around with both of them and to achieve the ratio that we want. Actually,
for instance, if I may jump in here, in 2016, we had gaming accounting for 46.4%.
I was getting there not through that that number, but let's say that one way of very easy to achieve that ratio is to reduce gambling, period. Okay, and we reduce gambling and we achieve that level. But that is a kind of impoverishing approach. We need to if I read it correctly, we need to reach that ratio while not getting poor on the process, because that getting poor has not only consequences for the population of Macau, but also for the public finances, because there is no other activity that is, if I may use kind of slightly maybe out of place expression, but people in the business of taxation use it very much, is the milky cow of the system in Macau is gambling. So when you replace gambling with something else, that has also public finance implications. So when we're looking for this diversification, we're looking for somewhere very reasonably gambling loses some of its share, but not necessarily in a way that the economy is much smaller. So the economy needs to keep getting bigger with the activities that will provide less financial resources to the government. So we need to devise how it's possible to grow all those other activities other than gambling that will, in a way, get the people of Macau richer, or at least keeps the standard of living, without putting into jeopardy the public finances. So that's a much broader discussion.
Not a zero-sum game, obviously.
No, nothing is a zero-sum game.
So moving to win-win. Thank you, José. Rui, I mean, on this matter of diversification, if you look at the prospect for the other industries to grow and to take up a bigger share of the GDP out of the four, right? Which one would you place your bet on?
Well,
so I'm bringing gaming conversation to non-gaming. We're supposed to stay away from that.
No, that's all right. I think.
Yes.
Well, I think.
Would you go all in on any of those four? No all in, right?
No, I wouldn't go all in on any of those four. I think we have to be realistic of what we can achieve. I think building industries that can leverage what we already have, which is a strong gaming tourism destination, I think is probably the approach that is more feasible. And in terms of allocating resources, it's probably the one that will have more results quicker. I think things around MICE, around entertainment, and that can drive obviously technologies that drive MICE and entertainment and build from there will have more chances of success than starting a brand new healthcare or industry or so-called modern finance industry, which and I totally agree. I think these are industries that are completely out of the scope of and the experience of the concessionaires. They already contribute a big slice of their revenue to the Macau government that can then reinvest and in these industries if they see that fits. But to leave that to the responsibility of the concessionaires or even have them participate somehow in that other than with their taxes that they pay may not be so fruitful. But there's a lot of scope around the tourism industry that to develop, to improve, and I think we're already seeing some of that happening.
So what you've seen this year is kind of in the realm of the so-called tourism plus and especially entertainment. Meaning question of integrating those businesses that can be a part of the overall business development of of an operator, of one of the
Yeah,
big six, right?
absolutely, and I think it's all connected with the move from the VIP to mass, which I think it's, as I think David was saying before, it's a chicken and the egg. You know, you have to provide more and continuous and high-level entertainment to bring in the masses, and also with the topic of attracting foreign players, which I think is one of the
Yes.
policy directions that has been highlighted several times, and I think you need that non-gaming component to do that. Otherwise, the experience of the gaming floor, I think, can be more easily replicated, you know, in other destinations.
Thank you. Now, non-gaming, I mean international visitation. You've got something to share here, right? You have a pathway to meet to
yeah,
attain
like
that goal, right?
I think that one of the great areas for diversification is mice. And back in Las Vegas when I started in '97 with Sheldon Adelson, I asked him, who are we competing with on the strip? And he says, you don't get it now. We're not competing with anybody on the strip. I'm competing with the city of New York, Jacob Javits Center, and I'm competing with Opryland in Nashville, who are the biggest convention centers in America. And they're getting all the huge events because they have massive mice centers and enough rooms to accommodate these shows. So his goal was to do 36 big shows a year and in excess of 20,000 visitors. But nobody could do that in Vegas. So his model was build his own massive convention center next to 3,000 suites, and the rest of the 100, at the time there were 130,000 rooms in Vegas, they could accommodate the rest of these people and still the gamblers. And that was the whole hope for here. The 1.2 million square foot convention center is here, plus now we've got the big addition of Galaxy, which is even a more high-tech product. The Vegas model is going to be revised now because it's built on a 20-year-old model. So it's not a modern mice center.
But we, in terms of infrastructure, I mean, is it enough what we've got? I mean,
No,
do we need to build
not.
more? But
so
where's the land?
Hong Kong has got 80,000 rooms and they're competing with us next door for mice. Singapore has 70,000 rooms and they're competing with us for mice. We've got 46, allegedly 55,000 rooms with the other, you know, bed and breakfast type accommodation. So we're way shy on rooms to be able to attract the big shows that we would like to get on rotation in Southeast Asia. That's one massive thing. Secondly, then the infrastructure has to move up to bring in the international crowd. I think that an opportunity was totally lost with the Air Macau issue. Air Macau has 22 aircraft. Their leading competitors, Air Asia, are talking about 220, 240 aircraft. Moving an airline and having a hub here with that type of scale and capacity will really boost your numbers up. So I think by leaving them along for another 3 years and saying a very low goal of 3 million international tourists next year is putting a very low benchmark for oneself, and I think they missed the mark on that. But in this investment of the 16 billion, there should be a lot more rooms here, and right now 61% are 5-star, and in those 5-star they're accommodated by gaming players first. So you bring a big convention, they've nowhere to stay or it's too expensive. So that has to be part of the 10-year plan. So in 10 years' time, if you have 85,000 rooms, you work on your infrastructural connections and bring it up to the power of the development of the high-speed rail in China, and we utilize the bridges properly and have multiple visits for multiple visas for one visit. So you can swan into Hong Kong, Macau, and Greater Bay Area on one visa. You got something that's competitive. That'll have to happen over the next 10 years, and then we'll have a proper mice competitive strategy.
Thank you. Now, José, transportation, accommodation, mobility.
I think MICE should be a case study because it has been one of the targets set many years ago, and that has been an industry strongly supported by the government. It has never took off. And I think Niall is putting the finger in some of the main issues. So why is such an industry that was so much in the initial cards, okay? Remember, Sheldon Adelson was discussing the huge development of Enching Island in 2005, so it's nothing new, okay?
remember quite well.
But it basically failed. MICE today is a minuscule share of GDP, minus contribution. So we must learn how did we fail so much. That's where we should start, I guess.
And how to turn tiny mice into big mice, right?
Well, Mickey Mouse now is in the
Yes.
public domain, and
So-
the initial one, not the initial one.
And we have to make room for more rooms and mice, but probably without mice in the room,
and
right?
Flies.
And
flies.
Yes, exactly. Flying, exactly. We need flights. We need airliners here. What's your comment on this whole discussion?
Yes or no? Yes, we need flights, but it doesn't mean they operate by Macau. That means the third run in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Because it's a golden time, I think. Hong Kong did us today, not 2 years ago, not 10 years ago, but today. So that's why I think it's good time to talk about this. Or maybe I'm not so sure whether the two SAR leaders would like to talk to each other, talking about the further cooperation about the third run.
You can bring them here to Rui Cunha Foundation, and
Of
we
course,
can be the
more
honest
than happy.
broker.
More happy to see happen.
Airport from the Zhuhai, it is just next door to Anqing.
Because
Yeah.
Zhuhai is not an international airport.
It is not. But
It's
it can
not
be, it
important.
can become. It was built as such. It was built as an international airport. Was never allowed by the authorities to become, so as not to compete with Macau, Hong Kong, and Guangzhou. But
Yeah.
it could be easily covered. So I believe part of the airport has never really been fully operated,
Yeah.
and is now mainly run by Hong Kong, I believe.
Yeah.
I think Macau was caught a bit sleeping there.
Guess here, transportation also, but also seamless mobility, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you are making the case for, if I get it right, it's not only about having, like, opening up finally the airliners franchise and competition in a post-monopoly situation regarding Air Macau, but also coming up with smoother arrangements on mobility, intermodal mobility between the airports and the LRTs and the MTRs of these life, right?
I think we can do it gradually because I understand.
And the
that-
bridge, of course.
Yeah, Air Macau actually increasing the number of airplane gradually, and but I actually propose another thing. Okay, I actually proposed many years ago. No one trusted the hotel rooms. I talked to many operators many years ago. Okay, hotel room would be the bottleneck later on. Okay, please increase the number of hotel rooms. Okay, only 1 or 2 operators listen it. Okay, but nowadays, you know, all operators saying that okay, I don't have good enough hotel rooms, right? And now the same situation. I address this issue once again. Number 1, hotel rooms. Number 2 is the airline. Airline companies would be the so-called the most important bottleneck of these two, not other things. But the good news is Macau is a very interesting place. If you add all the the capacity of the custom together, you know, each day we actually can entertain 1 million people in and 1 million people out. This is the current capacity we have. So, and that means we can do one thing. On one hand, we plan to have more hotel rooms. We plan to have more capacity of the airline. But on the other hand, try to increase the number of day trippers. Okay, that means day trippers never dry up our resources or capacity nowadays. So that means try to do more, you know, strategies, and then increase the efficiency of the transportation, and then keep the package on one hand 2 days or 3 days, but on the other hand, day trippers. And only day trippers can help short-term revenues nowadays.
Thank you, Davies. I guess it's time for us to open the floor to our distinguished friends that have joined us here at Rui Cunha Foundation. And we're talking about the hotel industry, and I see here some distinguished representatives from the city's hospitality. Perhaps Rutger or Vince would like to join the conversation with a remark and a question. Please go ahead.
What I miss in this conversation is, of course, it's about gaming, but to talk about hotel rooms, Hengqin hotel rooms. let's touch on Hengqin, because
That's
that is a
important.
matter of time that the border will open, and you talk about visa, sharing visa, in and out of Hengqin, Macau. Can you imagine? The number of rooms there, there's a lot of rooms open already. I think they have like 10 or 15,000 at the moment, and there's another 10,000 easily in the pipeline. So can we add that into the MICE basket for rooms? And what would be the impact on hotel room rates, even when, because someone mentioned that the rates in Macau are too high at the moment, hotel room rates. So what about if there's additional inventory from Hengqin coming on board? What would it do to the hotel business in Macau? Anyone?
Thank you. Davies, now and no.
I don't think the hotel rooms in Hengqin will give a very high level of pleasure to Macau room rate. Because based on my understanding, for those people who can afford sleeping in Macau, they don't care, okay? And then just looking at the experience in the last 1 year, the people who taking accommodation here in Macau versus the people who take accommodation in Hong Kong, okay? Hong Kong visitors, they always talking about, okay, Hong Kong rate is too high, too high, too high. Actually, Hong Kong room rate actually lower than Macau, okay, in average, okay? But why Macau visitors still taking accommodation here around 85 to 90% occupancy rate? So that means integrated resort or gaming with a gaming component, the customer base is different. So I don't think the Hengqin Islands hotel room will give a high pressure hotel room rate in Macau. We will benefit from both each other.
I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was working at Caesar's Palace in the orientation back in, again, 96 or something, they showed us an article that stated Las Vegas rooms are saturated. We've too many rooms. We're never going to survive. This has got to stop. And they had 36,000 rooms at that stage. They've now got 150,000 rooms. And it just kept growing and growing. So I think that it's, you know, if you've got the right offerings and the right supply and the entertainment, and the MICE was the one thing that drove it there, and the shows, etc. I think it can only add to the allure. When we were talking about Hengqin with Dr. Adelson at the beginning, he said, we want them to come to Macau and stay for 3 days and go for a day trip to Hengqin for leisure, to go and play golf, or a shotgun start in a convention, and it then come under the rules of you're still participating in a convention. The Guangdong government turned back to us and said, no, we're going to reverse that. We want them to come and stay 4 days in Hengqin and have a day trip to Macau. And that started as a fundamental argument back in 2004. And I think that there's a great synergy that can be built there, just knowing how to work it together. But as we know, going through that border with that double stop thing at the moment is, you know, a bottleneck. It just needs to be, if we can open it up and make it more fluid, all of this could be very exciting, you know. And you don't worry about the day trippers anymore. What was it, 51% were day trippers years ago. You don't mind if they can pop back and forward to a less expensive hotel and come and enjoy Macau at the same time. I think it'll help rise all ships.
And now that we are developing the night economy, you also need more night trippers, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Anyone else would like to join the conversation? And please, Kelsey.
Hi, sorry.
Hi. Go ahead.
I think this one's probably for Hui Proenza. I like you a lot. I'm sorry about this upcoming question. Basically, seeing what has happened with the Macau Jockey Club, it seems like Macau is diversifying away from its diversification attempts in terms of them wanting to run other types of gambling activities in the city. So we're going to no longer have horse racing in Macau. Looking from a legislative standpoint, could this be beneficial towards these operators in general, and who actually stands to gain from this new change?
Well, thank you very much for your question, Kelsey. I think it's a sign of the times that we've, it's a conference about gaming concessions, and we've spoke mostly about non-gaming and hospitality and so on. So I think, thank you for bringing it back to the game.
On the wrong we are betting on the wrong bit.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a loss in the sense of there was an offer of a different type of gaming and wagering in this case that added to what the city could offer. I think probably the times are not times for horse racing betting anymore, at least not in this region. But I think so. I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot of gainers from this particular event, but I think it raises the question of what's the next generation of players want to do, and how can we experiment and develop different types of games or different technologies. And I think we're quite stuck in that respect in the new things that have you've seen on the gaming floor. And I think the biggest innovation is probably the RFID and the smart tables, which can actually foster a lot of things, namely the ability of the overseas players to be tracked and can playing not only in those designated rooms, which I'm told by experts that's not very conducive to player engagement and so on. But I think it would be good to have some form of regulatory sandboxes in the gaming floors where we could test this type of technology around cashless payments, around AI, different types of games, or even using that opportunity to offer games that are available but not so profitable, and so that the table cap, and I think of poker, for example, it has always been the poor cousin, and so it's been kept out of the gaming floors mostly because of the cap. And so if you could operate and experiment around that, you could probably attract different types of players that then have they're more apt or more willing to spend on non-gaming and tap into that new generation of visitors. So I think you touched a good point, and experimenting and innovating outside the gaming floor, but also inside the gaming floor is important.
Thank you,
I
Rui.
want to
Kelsey?
just follow up on that really quickly with
Yeah,
Niall,
please, go
because
ahead.
we do have these types of innovations and changes which are happening on the gaming floor. We do have a lot more EGMs coming in, electronic gaming machines. How are those performing in regards to the rest of the market?
The advances in technology are great for the operator, they're great for the player, because we can track very accurately who's doing what. You rely a lot less on the supervisor dealing the game coming up with the ratings for the players, which can be problematic for us if they're just watching them when they're doing high hands, and we miscalculate their ratings and what they're worth. It could be frustrating for the player because they feel, I'm getting shortchanged here with what I should be getting in points and bonuses. So it's a really great way of bringing accuracy into the casino and ensuring that you know who's actually doing what, and you're rewarding the right people. Like the impact of having RFID on the table games is really incredible. MGM has been able to analyze their tables right down to the player, and as a result, their returns and their hold is really exceptional. So integrating these things is very, very important. They raced ahead and did this during COVID. It's a huge investment per table. A lot of the other casinos were reluctant to put RFID in. It was tests done in other casinos, and they went, yeah, I like it or don't. But as you may have known over the years, there's a very, at the top of, especially in table games, there's a very solid mindset on how things should be done. If you go into a casino 100 years ago, you saw the same table games basically that are still in place today, with a few exceptions of innovation. So they're very old school, and I think it is a very, very long transition to get them to do this. But it makes a huge difference, and can make a big difference to actually justifying and showing the mass versus premium mass versus VIP and its profitability over time, to justify business decisions and to allow the government's goal to come faster.
Just to really recap one thing real quick, based upon the horse racing. Actually, from what I understand, the government is not completely outlawing horse racing itself, right? Let me go back to Hui for this one. They have not canceled the possibility of having horse racing in Macau. So there is still, despite the comments that were said by the secretary today, they have not moved to cancel the legislation which would allow horse racing in Macau. Does that mean that that can still go forward?
No, the legislation is in place, so I think technically yes, but the government, and here I'm relying on you journalists on the reporting of the press conference today, I think it was quite clear that they understood that there were no longer any market conditions to sustain a new concession. So I think the political decision there is not to launch a public tender or to grant a new concession for horse racing, but the possibility remains.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Marisa, please.
Thank you. I would like to know, only José Duarte mentioned very briefly about one factor that I think it's one of the major differences that has to do with the new contracts for the operators, which is the delegation of the government in public policy related with heritage and taking care of this heritage. And we didn't talk so much about it, so I would like to know more about it and what are actually the measures or the policies, I don't know, that the operators are taking care about it, since it is, I mean, it has to do in everything in the city, I think, because heritage, historical neighborhoods, cultural tourism, so it seems to me that these kind of two activities that were completely separated based on the government activity and the gambling activity were completely separated and now are completely, I don't know, messy, mixed. I don't know, I would like to hear more about it. And what about the future based on this? Is it, I don't know, a project for the future that Macau is completely reserved to be just the gambling stage and everything, all the other facilities are getting out of Macau and Macau being just with the casinos? Or, and the future idea is to making the gambling disappear from Macau, or I don't know, it's been a futurist, but well.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify a point concerning the first issue? What I said, the way it was presented, it looks like the government is outsourcing public policy, but the issue is sufficiently broadly presented, so to speak, not to be clear exactly what is the role and the mandate of the operators. I think that needs to be clarified. Otherwise, we may end up in a very messy situation because, as Niall was saying, every operator will be interpreting things its own way, will have different mandates, be responsible for different areas, may become a mess, okay? So I'm not forecasting that it will be a mess. I'm saying that if things are not clarified, they may become a mess. I don't take from that in the future, operators will be the only actors in town and gambling will be the main activity, although that might be one outcome, one possible outcome. But it may also be the way of preparing the demise of the operators and in a way they will be preparing their own demise, or that one, at least a situation where they have a much lesser weight in town, which appears to be the political the desire. Okay? So I would say it's much more fuzzy than that at the point. I would like also to have some clarification about how those things are being thought about.
Davies, you may want to add something here.
Back to my original argument. All we are doing now, trying to create excuse for the tourists to come. Try to think about this. No matter how the so-called strategy implement, at the end, Macau very small, 33 kilometers square, and then we had a very long history, and we need to capitalize what we have within this territory. So that's why I think the government is trying the operator, to to use different 6 places, right, area. And then if you do it right, and actually it can create another name card or excuse from my standpoint for the tourists to come. As long as the tourists come, increase the number of tourists, the GGR goes up, okay? But I'm not totally agreeing with your point regarding the so-called, we are losing gaming, but gaining non-gaming. No, we are looking at what the EBITDA. The EBITDA now, maybe 2 years later, the total EBITDA by 6 operators outperformed 2019, or maybe much shorter, within much shorter period. Number one. Number two, if the government lose some public finance, yes, you are correct. However, we actually save around 500 billion per decade in the last 20 years.
I'm not saying it's bad that the government does it. I never said it was bad.
Some of them actually not supposed to be earned by us because some court cases, confirmed already, right? So that means we are trying to back to normal. Or maybe I put it another angle. In the last 20 years, some abnormal return actually happened. Now we are back to normal, back to more sustainable.
And would you agree that basically we are, in a way, as also Jose was pointing out, basically the whole rationale behind the liberalization of the gaming industry back in 2002, 2003, was to move forward with that model of entertainment, of mice and all of that, and to be less reliant on hardcore VIP gambling.
Yes.
That was the purpose, I remember quite well, when we had the liberalization of the gaming industry, and we're kind to finally getting it back on track, or finally on track. Could we look at things this way?
I totally agree with you. Frankly speaking, everybody knows it. 2015, our team responsible for the interim review.
That's right.
During that period of time, I did have a very good chance to review some document back to 2001, 2002. And finally, I learned that actually for those winners, they actually promised to build, Fisherman Wharf, but not that operator, okay? As well as some mice, okay? But anyway, at that point of time, the government actually looking for the so-called the entertainment, more diverse, so-called integrated resort, some style. Even a word, 度假村 resort, actually happened 2001, 2002 already, if you're looking at the document there. And that means the original idea, now we are back to original idea, actually 2001, yes, 2002.
That's right.
Okay?
So, thank you, Davis. Rui, getting it right, you were talking about innovation. Now actually high technology is one of the 4 of the 1+4. So I bring this into the conversation of innovation.
Yes.
Innovation in smart tourism and also the actual gaming and games.
Much higher.
Kelsey was, I think, addressing that issue of, we're talking about diversification, horizontal diversification, but how about the so-called vertical diversification? What's your comment on this?
No, I think, as Niall was saying, I think we've reached a point of technological development that we're at a very interesting stage where the same technologies can enhance client experience, or can at the same time help implement responsible gaming policies, can help casinos in their anti-money laundering controls. So I think the deployment of those technologies, and that could be RFID or other, it could be the cashless, moving towards a cashless gaming environment as they are experimenting in Australia. So there's that, and of course, also technologies around games. You're saying, it's the same games that have been played for 100 years on the table games. Is that? I think we have to have the opportunity, and of course we operate under a very strict legal and regulatory framework. So
that's one question. It is, should we have a bit of a more innovation-friendly, sandbox-friendly regulatory environment.
Absolutely. I think we should be able to have the opportunity to experiment under a controlled environment, to see what works, what doesn't work, and to you know, if it's working and if it ticks all these boxes of client experience, responsible gaming, you know, assisting on compliance. I think these are technologies that should be considered and deployed. And of course, there's always when we talk about this and we talk about facial recognition and moving away from cash, there's some anonymity that will be lost.
Yeah.
But I think that that train has already moved, and I think we better, you know, move past that and you know, and embrace it.
We have time for a couple more questions before we go for our conclusions. Nelson?
Hi guys.
You were this morning at the press conference and following the whole Bacau Jockey Club saga, right?
It's a never-ending story. No, I was just wondering. Okay, we're gonna lose horse racing, and how about other kinds of sports? In quotes, how about sports betting? They opened up the market. We haven't seen any other players coming in. It wouldn't require a lot of infrastructure to develop that side of gaming. Do you think sports betting in the city is just going to the same way as horse racing? Just going to wither, going up and down with the world tournaments and local tournaments? Could it be is it a lost opportunity to use more sports betting in Macau?
Anyone wants to jump in here?
We had an interesting experience with SGM a number of years ago. So we decided, because you know our partners were the Macau slot, to do a racing sports book on the second floor of Grand Lisboa. So I helped design it. We put up all the TV screens, doing like you do it in Vegas, tried to make it exciting and vibrant, and it just remained absolutely empty. The market had no interest. They were interested in the offline, you know, the going to the betting shops, and they just didn't catch it at all. And because we were very envious when we came in with Sands and Venetian, we said, right, we're going to do sports books better than we used to do back in Vegas, and but we weren't allowed. It wasn't part of our brief. So it was a funny thing. We were dying to do it, and then when we got a chance to do it, it just flopped. And so it was. It's interesting. Is the market into it, or are they not? And if they are into it with sports, and what venues and ways do we go about it? I think there's a lot of experimenting going on right now with. Well, we have some interesting things going on, right? We've got a synchronized swimming contests organized by some IRs. We've got, you know, snooker, which is not what you'd call a crowd drawing. It's a TV sport. So they're trying a lot of these things, but let's see. We have stadiums and things back from the East Asia Games that have just sat there dusty. So, you know, a lot of work would have to be done to bring it where it needs to be in Asia. But I think you've got a more difficult uphill challenge. You look at what they're doing in Vegas, bringing in big professional teams, and it's turning the city around. And now they did the Grand Prix. They got their hockey, they got their football, they got their basketball. It's a national thing, and it's a huge draw. I think that's a much more difficult thing to accomplish in Southeast Asia in general. So what sport do you focus on, and which teams do you bring in? You know.
And we will have the national games coming soon, next year, if I'm not mistaken. And will there be a momentum for, I don't know, but we have the infrastructure that it takes. It's an interesting discussion. We have time for one last question.
Could I get one more in? I mean, in particular for Professor Davis Fong, I mean, you spent a lot of time with these legislators during your time in office as a legislator. How much, what percentage of the legislators which are currently making our laws do you think actually understand how gaming works?
I don't know the percentage, but talking about Jockey Club this morning issues, when I was appointed as a legal maker, legislative assembly member, we do have a small group, around 10. Actually, we interview jockey clubs many times. And after some interviews, some discussions, and then finally, the government signed a contract with the jockey club 24 years. Yeah. So that means legislative assembly member actually did have interest to understand the operation of the concessionaries, not just casino, but also jockey clubs, or even Greyhound at that point of time. Probably our team actually responsible for the Greyhound at that point of time. But once again, we propose to have some proposal to them, but they give up, and then the story is they give up the new contracts. And the same issue here, but the story a little bit different. They signed contract, 24 years, but several years later they give up. So back to your original question, yes, a certain percentage of the so-called legislative assembly member, they did have interest about the gaming, and they understand the gaming. But I don't know the exact percentage you asked. Okay, thank you.
All right, I think, yeah, we're going to move towards the conclusions of our session, and it's a question and also the concluding remarks regards what lies ahead. If we are to have another roundtable in 1 year's time for the second anniversary, what can we expect and what lies ahead? And also, I mean, we certainly have to factor in a number of externalities, of external factors. Certainly the international environment, the international macroeconomic environment, but also the economy in mainland China, and also the disposable income of those who are the patrons, those who are the tourists, those who spend their money here. How do you address this, Davis?
I actually had two expectations this year. Number one is try to be more focused. Last year, we actually developed more non-gaming elements. And then we test the water, we learn experience, what is working, what is not working. And if 1 year is good enough, and then we try to focus on those more profitable or more better off Macau. Okay, this is number one expectation. Number two, I strongly believe 2024, Macau still outperform the other tourism destination. Because the investment in the last 20 years, and then we had a lot of so-called capacity. And then 2024, the government need the operator to do more promotion. That means we are trying to more penetrate the market. And then penetration still working. Just give you one figures, I think is good enough. Shenzhen people, more than 10 million, but visiting Macau, less than 10%. How about Hong Kong? How about Zhuhai? Hong Kong for many, many years, 100% penetration. 7 million people, 7 million visit to Macau. Zhuhai people, 2 million, citizens, 120% visiting Macau. Why 10% only in Shenzhen? Why 100% Hong Kong? Why 120% in Zhuhai? Really? That means still
untapped field in the Greater Bay Area.
Yes, 1 hour leaving Zoom. We need to penetrate the market. We need to working hard.
Oh, thank you. Jose, about what lies ahead, about the future, and not the external factors that we can already see taking shape.
Are we starting a
risks.
new session?
Yes.
You're taking all those issues. Are we starting a new session?
Yeah. For the conclusion, I mean, this, and of course your concluding remarks regarding this talk.
Well, I don't think I have many concluding remarks. I think this is always an open issue, an open discussion. It's interesting today we discussed so much about the past and the things that were thought about in the past and were not fulfilled. And I would say that I wish all the best that we manage to go through this period and get a more stable situation for the economy of Macau, as the previous one was clearly one that was also bringing an heavy toll to the infrastructure and to the society of Macau. So let's be clear about that. We understand that. So in some ways, we may even regret a little bit that the original mindset was not for dynamics that we could develop here and they could analyze it here, but it was not fulfilled. Would we probably provided a more stable and less disruptive development of Macau. But the past is the past, and what I would expect for the next year is that if those external factors do not change things again, would be that we try, and I appreciate that Davis mentioned that the government is also trying by trial and error, and that's an approach that I appreciate, not for the government of Macau everywhere. I do believe that many times we need to make trials, and we learn mainly by trial and error, not by big models. So I would expect that next year we can have a more positive answer to some of the questions that we asked here today.
Thank you, José. Rui, the learning curve, the concluding remarks, and what lies ahead.
Well, I think you pointed out what is for me the biggest challenge or risk, let's say, which is the economy of our key source market. And I understand if there's a lot of untapped potential still there, but it has always been there. And I think but we also experienced a period throughout the last 20 years of exponential growth in China, and that is just not the case now. And so that's a risk. And I think what we have also concluded here today is that to attract an international visitation, to start counterbalancing that, and that seems more and more of a business case considering the economic slowdown, it will take, the implementation of measures, of infrastructures, of hotels, rooms, that will take a long time. So I think we need to focus on, small measures that can be implemented quickly to support the attracting those international visitors. I think there's a big question around the tax, how it's going to be worked out, the rebate on the tax. Yes. So I think we'll probably have an answer. There's a cap, obviously. I think we should fully utilize that. We should, be bold and not tax international players' revenue up to that cap, and other small measures, I think, to try to make it to start making an impact. So I think next year, I hope we'll continue on this trajectory, and also, let business do business, particularly on the non-gaming side. If things don't work from a business standpoint, they should be allowed to fail, and others take their place and see if they work.
Thank you, Rui. Niall, market-driven. So I guess, in addition to top-down, bottom-up, is that a case?
I think the future is really bright. If you look at the last quarter, this was the most profitable mass quarter in the history of Macau.
If you look at the quarter
of 2023.
We're looking forward to the quarterly
so you do
results.
The multiple,
probably they will
I
show
think that the potential of reaching that 220 billion that's pretty conservative.
Yeah.
If you look at the pace of this last quarter. Now, I think the government has given very solid instructions over the year. It started off grey and it got clearer and clearer. I was very delighted to hear from the IRs where they said, the government has called us in, they sat down and they asked us, what is it we need to do as a government to help you get there? That was a huge turnaround because they were nervous in the first two quarters. And when that question came, they felt, right, we're in partnership now, we'll make this thing happen. Now, there's a lot to be done. The potential that Davis pointed out is just incredible, right? So the individual visitor scheme, there's so many provinces still to be opened up. Yeah. Beijing just has to decide, I'll open up that one, and we'll go from 40 million to 60 million. Now, the problem is, they recognise, the government recognises, our infrastructure hasn't kept up with the high-speed rail, all the connectivity, and the ability to get to Macau's gate. We haven't caught up yet. We've been able to take care of them when they come in. So the big, nasty issues in the room are fix the taxis, come down on them like you did on the junkets, fix the infrastructural issues with the bridge and have free flows of visas, and work on the lift if you want international travel, bring in another international airline to be able to work with us to make those things happen. And not to forget, we've got a very wealthy government. They get a lovely tax revenue off this business. Mass is about numbers, so we have to bring the mass numbers up. The type of station was built for a capacity of 60 million, so are a lot of the other connectivities. If we bring the mass in and we can flow them around without clogging up the place, it'd be great, but we got to fix other issues, including especially the visas for blue cards, and not forget this year, let's start talking to the SMEs, because you're getting the 6 IRs to go into areas and rejuvenating them without even consultation with the local SMEs. They're coming and saying, we're going to do this, what would you like? Not even been asked yet, but I'm sure it will happen. And I think over the next couple of years, if those things are brought into the mix, we've got a bright future.
Thank you, Niall, and we will hopefully be here and hold another panel. How about that, with this same panel of guest speakers? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Davis, Fong, José Duarte, Rui Proença, Niall Murray, big hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot, all of you joining us here at Rui Cunha Foundation on Facebook. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming in the near future. See you next time at another MBTV Rui Cunha Foundation debate series. Thank you very much and good evening. Thank you.